and we'd like to come back and revisit the big win in '65 of the Mickey Thompson 200-mile-an-hour meet. Mickey invited racers from all across the country to come to Fontana, 2-day race, and all the big hitters came out. The surfers raced Saturday and Sunday, and won on Sunday. So that, and there's pictures of Mike getting, looks like $100 bills. I'm sure they weren't, but
a lot of ones in there probably.
Piles of money. It looks like it's
Yeah.
a wonderful shot. What are you? We need to talk more about that big meet, because that seems to be the place to start that pushed you into '66, which was your big year as I see it. So what do you remember about racing at Fontana in late '64 or '5?
Okay, Mickey Thompson had this MT 200-mile-an-hour club meet, and the idea was you had to be running some of his equipment, connecting rods, pistons, whatever. I don't remember what the rules were, but you had to, run one or the other, do you think, Don?
Or a decal?
No, because they knew whether you bought from. I think
Just about everybody was on the MT deal because he was the supplier of, he was the only supplier of certain parts. So yeah, decal and a visible piece like the valve covers.
Was that enough?
Yeah.
Anyway, so he had to run some of his equipment, but everybody did, so that worked out fine. And so they had this big event, and so we get beat on the first day. According to the published report, we had some kind of grief, and doesn't look like we were that competitive anyway. Anyway, so we get beat on Saturday by Mooneyham, Jackson, Faust, Ferguson.
Yes.
And so
You go home?
we go home, work on the car, get a little sleep, come back on Sunday. And Sunday was sort of the B part of the program, so it's not the main deal. This is still a lot of money back in those days, $2,500. So anyway, so we start racing, and no, before we start racing, we warm the car up on alcohol, and I leave the alcohol jet in the main jet. So now it's going to be extremely lean on nitro, with the nitromethane in. And I hope I got the story matched to the race. But anyway, car runs great, way too good, and it we're afraid that we burnt the thing down, and so we check it as best we can. We can't see anything wrong with it, so we take and we wrap shop rags around.
You said you burnt out all the spark plugs? What, you saw something there, didn't you?
Yeah, the spark plug would act like a fuse the way we had everything arranged. So it just blows the insulators out of the spark plug, and then they just quit, or the engine just quits. And it blew all 8 out. And so we didn't know if it burnt the pistons before it did that or not. So anyway, we knew we were in trouble, so we wrapped rags around it. And at some point, we raced Bill Alexander, who was a big name in drag racing in those days. And Bill Alexander, he sees the rags and thinks, uh-oh, these guys are, this thing's wounded. All I have to do is make sure I don't get at the red light, don't leave too early, just be careful. I got this one in the bag, I'm sure this is what he's thinking. So we get up there, of course, our driver, Mike, he just leaves. And anyway, Mike and Bill Alexander run identical elapsed times, except Alexander's being cautious and he leaves late. Well, anyway, he loses on the same elapsed time, and he was convinced that we had just played a game on
Set him up.
Right.
Snookered him is what they
Snookered. Yeah, okay, we can go with that word. That works.
and acted like it was wounded when it really wasn't, because it just ran perfectly.
Nobody ever did that, did they?
No.
Well, we certainly didn't. That's for sure. Well, anyway, so he never did let me off the hook. Later in his life, he'd be civil, but I don't know that I ever got
Really?
got a full reprieve.
But you guys had a little history
Yes, we did. We had
of trying to put one over on folks with the blue dye and the fuel to make them think you were running something different. So
we were
yeah, I
somewhat
can-
guilty.
yes,
Good job.
There may have been a little
But we were
guilty history.
Yeah, we would just help their imagination along is what we were doing. We weren't really trying to create it. We were just going to help their
Just
imagination.
help their
Of
imagination.
course.
So now you've won on Sunday. You made a lot of money for the time. $2,500 is a good payday for Top Fuel at any time because a big meet then paid $1,000. Most of them paid $750 to win Top Fuel.
Yeah.
So you guys got well. You could pay some bills, buy some new parts, and so it looks like later on in that year you didn't run very much. So maybe you were buying new parts or updating your stock, as may be. Now, what you have here is copies of a journal that Mike Sorokin kept that showed who they raced, an ET, maybe the best ET of the day, and how much money you made for the trip.
The really important stuff.
Well, yeah. You were keeping track of the engine and how it ran in your mind, and as you said prior, Bob Skinner might have kept things on a piece of paper in his pocket, but this is real data right here of at least the money you made.
Right, and this Adam Sorokin, Mike Sorokin's son, still has this book.
Was nice
He
enough to let us
photographed
know.
it and emailed it.
Yes. Thank you, Adam.
And a big thank you to Adam for that.
Yes.
That's written gold there.
Yeah.
It's mostly a record of how much the team won. And then in some cases it shows all the competitors that Mike beat and what elapsed time he beat them with. Or got, maybe, I don't know if he shows the ones where he gets beat. I don't know about that. I haven't studied this very closely. But anyway, it's one of the few records that shows
How much activity there was.
Yeah.
the activity. And there's some gaps and there's things out of order. But it was just for his own purpose. I'm sure he never imagined he would be showing it to people.
50 years later,
50 years
here
later.
it is.
Yeah.
So now we're going to move into 66. We've fairly well covered your experiment up to this time of learning to run 100% nitromethane. Still ahead of most of the others. There may be others trying it now, but I'm sure they're still blowing up parts, and you had a pretty good handle on it. So you've won the second biggest race of the year, even though it might have been the B race on Sunday. It was a big race for you guys, and it was a big race for Mickey Thompson's Fontana drag strip. So we're going to see how you did up to the end of the Surfers era by looking at some information that John Phillips was kind enough to dig up and put down by month to show your progression toward your biggest win at the 1966 Fuel and Gas Championships, also known as the March Meet. And then on to what we refer to as the end.
Right. Now, at the beginning of the year, we're not seeing a whole lot of activity, are we?
Well, it looks like in January it shows one Carlsbad, race in Carlsbad, California.
And it shows in the data that you guys, there was you could have won a $1,400 jackpot if you'd have won the third eliminator in a row. So there was a circuit of some type,
Yes.
and apparently you'd won the first two races, but you met Tommy Allen at Carlsbad in the first round. Tommy Allen at Carlsbad was usually he ended up with his name as the winner. So and you were mentioning about Tommy Allen as a friend and as a fellow racer, that when you guys would show up at the races, he was more than generous if you needed something.
Oh, Tommy Allen and his whole team, Roland Kleinsword, Larry Huff.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the team at the time. They were wonderful. I mean, if we needed something, we'd come over and ask for, "Can we borrow a gallon of alcohol?" Sure, help yourself. Anyway, they let us have anything that we wanted. They were wonderful people. On that deal, some of the drag strips got together and they had this little circuit, and it was Bakersfield, just their kind of monthly event
Mm-hmm.
was one of them. Carlsbad, I don't remember who the other one was.
It was Pomona
And
part
what-
of that program at that point. Because Pomona had reduced its behavior from weekly to once a month.
And wasn't this an NHRA Jackpot Series? Is that what it was?
It had Jackpot was in the name.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Jackpot or not. I mean, I don't know if it was NHRA or not. The Jackpot certainly is.
There was a
That's
Jackpot
printed
Series. That's
evidence.
what we know.
But it was just between a few drag strips. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
apparently we won 2 of them. So then
Yeah.
there was you got an extra some amount of money if you won all 3.
$1,400 an extra on top of
Yeah.
that
So we-
if you won the 3.
So we show up at Carlsbad for the 3rd one.
And true to form, the watchdog, who's nicknamed after keeping that purse safe.
I think this is where the nickname comes from.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, Tommy said he just left and he was amazed he didn't get a red light. I think that maybe the red light got turned off. you know,
I can't wait to interview the watchdog.
Well, when you have drag strip promoters,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the flick of a switch, saves $1,400.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
But anyway, regardless of what actually happened,
Right.
Tommy beat us on some kind of a starting line deal.
And I want to ask you about that particular meet because we have one shot of the surfers pulling one gigantic wheel stand. And it was at Carlsbad that it happened. And I wonder if this was the meet it took place
I
at.
think that was it in Time magazine?
I don't know, but it was a big wheelie.
Was it in Time or Life magazine?
It was a big one, yeah. Life, I think.
Yeah, it's not mentioned in here, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean.
Yeah, well, we'll pin it down and put it in where it's supposed to go because we do have that picture.
Carlsbad.
Because that was really rare for you guys.
Yeah, that was very unusual because most people would take the weight off the lead weight off the front
Right?
and risk having the front come up on
Right.
the drag strip. We always just put in too much because it didn't make any difference and it's going to run about the same one way or the other.
Right.
You need to show the picture of the lead they run on the front.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
some shots.
I've
of
got it.
It's
Trust me.
incredible, and think that car could do a wheel stand with
With all that weight on the front.
weight
Yeah,
on
exactly.
there. It's pretty amazing.
So it was probably one of those
Pedal
timing
on it.
between the clutch and the
Sure.
Yeah.
gas. You know,
Right. Yeah.
He squeezed
It
the
was
throttle and didn't come up with enough to
maybe-
break the tires loose or
Yeah, or
whatever.
maybe
And this
the
is
motor-
after the top car had been lengthened too on top of it. So
Yes.
Yeah.
leverage wise, it was even a bigger thing to
It
lift
was probably
off.
just some odd circumstance.
Well,
You know, maybe
Carlsbad
the
had
motor-
pretty good traction, I think,
Yeah.
back then.
Maybe the motor wasn't running quite as good
Yeah.
as it should have been.
Maybe.
Well, the drag strip was less than a year old,
Yeah.
or just at a year old, because it opened in late '64.
Yes, it did. You're correct.
November, December '64.
You're correct. Yeah.
That was a great drag strip. Great layout. Down in a hole.
Yeah.
Everybody had a wonderful view.
But those yellow guardrails were awful close, weren't they?
And so was the mountain at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you didn't get stopped,
Right.
it had a catch net, but
Yeah.
nobody liked the catch net because you were going to bend your racer. But I think if you hit that mountain, you were going to bend your racer anyway.
Yeah,
so,
that's true. Better the catch
you
net.
know.
True.
I hit it
You did?
with a motor plate. We put a new motor plate in the car and we didn't cut the bottom off. It was about that far below the chassis. And Yates run off the end. And that motor plate stopped that car in about 3 feet.
Yeah.
And he was black and blue from the belts.
Oh,
Wow.
Good story.
And it didn't hurt anything because there was so much area on the motor plate, and it was 3/8 of an inch thick. It just blew the sand everywhere and stopped it. So it